I have explained this particular question a couple of times. It's one of those questions where you have to give it a little bit of legitimacy. This is a question that a lot of the non-believers have. I'm not sure it's as much a question as it is an attempt to, I don't know, I don't want to say mock, but maybe it's an attempt to tap into the emotion of the belief system of the Christian. You know, it's just one of those questions where when you hear it, you realize, you're like, well, that question, would make sense if you were a believer. But as a non-believer, it really doesn't make sense that you would ask it unless you are asking it as a tool or a method to deconvert a believer. And so the question is this: what kind of a God would erase so many lives here in the world, with all of the wars and the commandments that God gave to eradicate certain sects of humanity, or even Noah's flood, which is a primary point in the question? What kind of a God would do this? And you know what? I get, as a non-believer, it would be extremely difficult to wrap your head around it. But as a believer, let me just give you my wisdom. Let me give you what God has given me in order for me to be able to wrap this particular answer around my very big head. I think of it this way. I think of it as God saving the soul, and not as much that he would have a requirement or a desire or a need to be equally as concerned about the flesh as maybe humanity might be. You see, Jesus Christ said we can barely understand the things of the world, let alone, he's not even going to begin to tell us the things about heaven. We couldn't fathom that. We can't even grasp the world we live in. But I look at it this way. This is kind of the wisdom that God gave me. And I don't know that it's going to break through the walls of non-belief. I'm just going to put this on the table so you have an understanding of why, for me, Noah's flood makes perfect sense, or that God would erase particular tribes, clans, cities, towns for a much greater purpose than we in this world with our carnal thinking could understand. I want you to imagine you're standing on the side of the road and you see a beautiful red Corvette, brand new, flying past you, and the windows are tinted so you can't see that there's a driver. And if you're going to go on the evidence, because you can't see the driver, you have to conclude, or at the very least assert, by your position, that there is no driver. I want you to just keep that in mind for a second. So you see this beautiful red Corvette with tinted windows fly by you, and then it hits a pothole in the road, and it begins to lose control as you see it swerving and spinning, and all of a sudden it rolls over, and now it's rolling over and over and over until finally it makes its way into a ditch where it stops upside down. So as you're standing there watching this happen, Are your thoughts that you're hoping that the vehicle is okay? Are you going to race to the accident scene with a heart filled with concern about the vehicle? Or are you going to race over to the vehicle to try to save the driver, to pull the driver from the wreckage? You see, the problem with the non-believer is that you don't believe there's a soul in these flesh vehicles that we travel in this experience here on earth with. When I say to you that a car flies by you with tinted windows, and by your worldview and your need for evidence, you have to assert that there is no driver in the vehicle, as you haven't seen one. Now you could say, yeah, but we know that all vehicles require drivers. Well, no, that's not true. There are remote control vehicles now. We have remote controlled drones that are bombing places all over the world, that are spying. We have drones that are in the air that we can't even see, but they're being manned from somebody's desk in a building somewhere via remote control. Well, what I'm going to say to you is this, is that we are not remote controlled. We have souls, we have drivers. And it is that very driver, it is that very soul that God is concerned with. So when God caused Noah's flood, it was not to eradicate or to eliminate humanity. It was to save humanity, to give humanity another opportunity to get it right. Because we got it wrong. And so when you think about God, of which let's never forget that He's God, and God can do what He wants with His creation. If you, from nothing, created a garden, and the weeds in the garden were taking over your garden and destroying all of your vegetation or your flowers, you would have the right, as the creator of that garden, to remove the weeds and remove whatever in the garden was contaminated, destroyed, or infected by the weeds. You would be allowed to do that as the God of that garden. I hope this message sunk home. I hope this message pierced your heart. God bless, and have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas. Take care of those kids. Give them a hug.